Jack, my husband, made it quite apparent when he got his inheritance. I no longer require a life with you. I have a $5 million inheritance. If I had so much money, I don't need you. His icy remarks implied that our marriage will dissolve. I felt like an impediment after a long time of existence. However, he is still unaware of the important mystery behind the $5 million bequest. Is Grandpa really in such critical condition, Mom? My daughter Sophie asked me an unexpected question that surprised me. It is stated that Jack and I were unaware of Ethan's significant health issue. Ethan is Jack's father. Did your dad tell you that information? Jack is the only person who could have told Sophie. Yes, and Dad told me to renounce Grandpa's inheritance on a call. My calm life was going to be disturbed by a single phone call, which made Sophie's remarks unsettling to me. A few days following the conversation with Sophie, Ethan died quietly. I've lived with Jack's parents since we were married, and I've never thought twice about helping them out when their health deteriorates. We had been informed about Ethan's passing for the past 5 years. Following the death of Jack's mother, the funeral went off without a hitch, but as soon as I felt that the stress had subsided, my husband's actions drastically shifted. What are you doing here? Why hasn't it been cleaned properly lately? Jack frequently points out minor dust and small stains. I'm sorry. I must have missed it. I'll clean it right now. This place isn't cleaned well either. Do you really clean every day? Of course, I clean with the same routine as always. Even though I clean just as always, I can't understand why Jack is so angry. But it seemed the issue wasn't just about cleaning. Why are you serving this? I wish you'd pay more attention to the taste when you cook. It's hard when the dishes I put effort into are criticized one by one. Even the dishes he used to enjoy are now unappreciated. Is there something bothering you lately? I plucked up the courage to ask, but it seemed to worsen his mood. It's useless to deny it. To be honest, the food you make isn't good. I've been tolerating it because my parents never complained, but I've always felt its tastelessness. Deep down, Jack's words pierced my heart coldly and sharply. It was the first time he had ever criticized me so severely. I knew when Jack was this upset, anything I said would only fan the flames. My mom always cleaned and did laundry perfectly, and at mealtimes she cooked with care, without cutting corners. You're nothing like her. I've been patient, but I can't stand it any longer. This was the first time he compared me to his mother and criticized me. All I could do was reflect deeply on myself. I'm truly sorry. I couldn't have imagined that he valued my cooking so little. Jack always used to smile and say it's delicious when eating. When we first got married, his mother gave me cooking advice. To think he always found my cooking tasteless. Tears started to flow uncontrollably. Do you think anything will change if you cry? Your tears mean nothing now. Don't show them to me. Lately, everything just feels so tedious. After saying those words, Jack suddenly stood up and left the house, slamming the door behind him. As he walked away, I called out, "Jack, where are you going? Come back." But it seemed he didn't hear me. My mind was in turmoil, unable to keep up with this sudden change, unable to understand what had just happened. Until a few months ago, we were a couple who shared everything, holding hands, sharing the small joys of daily life, and tackling minor grievances together. I couldn't understand why we had become so distant. Then I remembered the content of the call from Sophie. It's about Ethan's inheritance. There was a hint of hesitation in Sophie's voice. That night, Jack came home much later than usual, and I missed the opportunity to ask him about it. Was there something going on? Maybe Jack found out some information about the inheritance and wanted to keep it to himself. I tried to approach Sophie. I wonder why they're discussing inheritance while Grandpa is still in good health. She had expressed doubts about Jack and said she had conveyed the same to him. If the way the inheritance is divided doesn't change, it will all fall into my hands. Considering Sophie, I believe this is the best way. Recalling Jack's recent cold behavior towards Sophie, doubts crossed my mind. If he intends to take all the inheritance and abandon me, this thought tightened my chest and tears again welled up in my eyes. In my pain, I became keenly aware of the sounds around me. Just as the room became eerily silent, the sudden ring of the phone echoed throughout. I didn't feel up to answering, but it could be important. Checking the caller ID, I saw Jack's name. The same Jack who had left the house earlier. Picking up felt tiresome, but I also didn't want to face any backlash for ignoring it. So I hesitantly answered. "What are you doing? Don't keep me waiting. I'm running out of time." His sudden authoritative tone took me by surprise. He was indeed stubborn at times, but he wasn't someone who would yell without a reason. In the past, I was shocked by his changed demeanor. I let out a slight sigh, hoping he wouldn't notice what was wrong. "Is there a problem?" Jack asked. "I have something to talk about. I'll be home soon. Stay home and wait for me." Lately, his voice sounded unmistakably colder than before. I replied with a brief, "Okay," and promptly hung up. Looking at the clock, I realized more than 3 hours had already passed since Jack went out. I had been crying, so overwhelmed with confusion and pain that I hadn't realized how much time had passed. After a while, I heard the door open and Jack's footsteps, a sweet scent of body wash, one we didn't use at home, wafted from him. That unfamiliar smell intensified the pain in my chest. "I'll be straight with you. I want to end our relationship. As a token of gratitude, I'll give you $220,000. His words were something I had feared deep down. Still facing this reality, the shock was so immense that I felt tears drying up. "I'm genuinely tired of you not managing things at home. I want to live peacefully in my old age." Linda, who had dreamed of a peaceful old age, was now facing the shattering of that dream by none other than Jack. "Why are you here?" Her words trailed off as she searched for what to say. Jack looked at her with a smug smile. At that moment, a bright ringtone from Jack's cell phone filled the room. The unfamiliar tone was clearly different from his usual one. To Linda, it felt as if this unusual sound hinted at communication from a specific individual. "I'm sorry, but I haven't finished my errands yet." Linda sensed a slight softness in Jack's voice, different from how he usually sounds towards her. It felt somewhat kinder and more intimate. Furthermore, the sweet scent of body wash in the room, the unique ringtone from earlier, and the changed tone of his voice, all these events hinted at something he might be hiding. "I knew it," Linda whispered quietly so that Jack wouldn't hear. He had been too overt about his external affair. Considering the inheritance he might be getting soon, the alimony might be insignificant for him, even if his infidelity becomes evident. After ending his call, Jack looked down at Linda with emotionless, cold eyes. "My intentions haven't changed. I want you to sign this document. I'll contact you later. Make sure to have it signed by then. I don't plan to come back to this house. Remember, this house is now yours." Without uttering another word or even looking at my face, Jack headed towards the door. What did our long marital life of 40 years mean? A few days later, I found myself at a lawyer's office as I gathered information about Jack's actions and Ethan's inheritance. I explained it to our daughter, Sophie. Her complexion changed. It was painful to show our daughter our mistakes, but Sophie, out of love for me, let her emotions out and shed tears. Then she showed strong determination to confront Jack and introduced me to a lawyer to support us. "Hello, I am Robinson. I will be handling your case. I will support you to the best of my ability." The woman named Robinson sitting across from me seemed to be in her late 40s, exuding a calm aura. Her neatly groomed hair and attire gave off a professional vibe. Her clear way of speaking provided me with a sense of reassurance. "I'm truly sorry for approaching you suddenly. My name is Lai Johnson. I'm a bit nervous since it's our first meeting under such circumstances." "That's all right. I have already received some information from Sophie. Sophie has briefed me on the overview, so I was able to talk in detail with peace of mind. Based on what I've researched over the days and the information Mrs. Robinson separately gathered for me, we verified the facts. My husband doesn't have any siblings, so if our daughter Sophie renounces the inheritance, the huge fortune, which amounts to about $5 million, will all go to my husband. Also, Jack's affair with a woman named Jennifer began at a bar they happened to visit, and it seemed their relationship continued for about 6 months. She seems quite different from me, and I was curious about what happened between her and my husband. Through a joint investigation with Mrs. Robinson, we were able to uncover an important fact that my husband might not yet know. "Linda, how do you intend to proceed from here?" Mrs. Robinson asked me in a gentle tone with soft eyes. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I deeply appreciate it," I replied, smiling towards Mrs. Robinson. I handed over the fee for the procedures, and after a brief exchange with her, I quietly left the office. 5 days later, I received a call from Jack on my cell phone. He proposed a meeting in a quiet cafe. I arrived a bit earlier than our scheduled time. The cafe was surprisingly empty. The owner warmly welcomed me and suggested I pick any seat. I chose a seat by the window to enjoy the calm outside view. After a while, the entrance bell rang, and in my line of sight stood Jack and his new girlfriend, Jennifer. When Jack saw me, he smirked with a sense of pride. "Are you prepared for the divorce?" I was a bit surprised that this was his first statement. It seemed he was convinced he was in full control. "Is this your new associate?" I hadn't expected him to bring her to such an important discussion, and I was astonished at his decision. I wondered if he was the man I once deeply loved. Has he changed because he cheated? Or was he always like this? I can't tell. "You are Jack's wife, right?" "My name is Jennifer. I've recently started dating him," she said with a sudden smile. I couldn't quite grasp the meaning of her sudden smile. "I've heard a lot about you from Jack. Seeing you in person, you do look a bit aged. I wonder how Jack endured all these years. I feel a little sorry for him." Indeed, Jennifer seemed to take great care of her appearance. She looked much younger than her actual age. In her 60s, compared to her, I might look my age, but I can't accept the way she phrased it. "Jennifer, it's those tendencies of yours I warned you about," Jack interjected. "But indeed, I did think that. But Jack, if it were me, I would cherish you more," I said softly. "I know, Linda. I don't want you to overthink it anymore. I just want you to file the divorce papers." I was taken aback by Jack's expected attitude. "Hold on. There's something I want to discuss," I said, noticing a hint of confusion on Jack's face. "What are you getting at? Is it all about your father's inheritance? Is that why, after all our years of marriage, you're deciding this?" I wanted to know the truth behind all these events. I can't see how my father's inheritance and you are related. That's solely my father's, he said. I've heard detailed stories about your father's vast inheritance from Sophie. I know how much it's worth. So what? That inheritance isn't for you to take. But I'll answer. Actually, more than the inheritance itself, the end of taking care of my parents is one of the reasons I want to part with you. Just a caregiver role. How had Jack seen me only as a caregiver and not the loving wife I used to be? I don't even have the energy to cry. Can we speed this up, Jack? I want to start our new life. Besides, have you still not let go of Jack? Don't make me repeat myself. I'm not thinking of a new start with you now. I want you to file the divorce papers. Waves of emotion struck my heart with intense anger and deep sadness. My hand quivered slightly. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out the divorce papers, but my name isn't written yet. The situation isn't settled. To hand it over, you remember promising me the house and money, right? I clearly remember when we talked about it. Yeah, I did say that. I'm a man of my word, so I plan to give you the house and money, Jack replied. You say you're kind, but a truly kind person wouldn't just use their wife as a mere caregiver and then abandon her. So I'm demanding rightful compensation of $30,000 in the rights to the house. What compensation? When we talked about money, it was supposed to be $20,000, Jack argued. You always nitpick at the very end. Your attitude of trying to pay me the absolute minimum is so obvious. But the difference of $10,000 means a lot to me. So I think $30,000 as compensation is fair. Your girlfriend, it's Jennifer, right? I thought of claiming from her too. But in lieu of that, I want to settle for $330,000. And I intend to sign the divorce papers right here in front of you. Jennifer reacted unexpectedly, first commenting, $30,000 should be fine. Jack, pay it if you're satisfied with it, she said with a sudden smile. With Jennifer's statement, Jack finally accepted the alimony of $30,000. Now we needed Jack's signature on the land title change document Mrs. Robinson had prepared and the notarized alimony agreement. Jack looked surprised by my preparations. Still, I calmly said I had a life to continue and eased his suspicions. We took out our respective seals, lined up at the designated spot, and Jack smiled as if he anticipated something. So, Linda, will you sign the divorce papers right now? Jack asked. Understood. Here's the divorce paper, I said as I carefully wrote my name and firmly stamped it. Jack couldn't hold back his laughter and laughed out loud. Again, with this, you and I no longer have any relationship. Also, I have something to tell you. Actually, I'm set to inherit $5 million. So I didn't need someone like you. Thanks for the divorce. What a foolish ex-wife you had, letting go so easily for just $30,000. Jack's voice sneered behind me as I left, followed by the loud laughter of Jack and Jennifer echoing. I hurriedly left and headed to the city hall. My only goal now was to complete this procedure as quickly as possible and sever ties with the two of them completely. They might be laughing happily now, but I wondered how long their happiness would last. A month later, I quickly sold the house I received from Jack, prepared for a new life, and decided to live near my daughter Sophie, who planned to start her life near her husband's parents' home. Since Jack's mother lived nearby, I thought there would inevitably be moments I'd feel cautious. But contrary to my concerns, Sophie's husband warmly welcomed me and was always considerate, which I found very reassuring. My daughter Sophie seemed angry at Jack's actions at first, but when I told her a certain fact, her expression changed completely, and she smiled brightly. I had a hunch that Jack would soon realize my plan. As proof, I deliberately didn't change my mobile number. The day that intuition became a reality came sooner than I thought. From the afternoon, my mobile rang repeatedly, and sure enough, it was Jack. He called many times, but at first, I purposely didn't answer. After receiving repeated calls, I finally picked up. "Hello, why are you doing this?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "What's the matter?" "You called out of the blue." Jack raised his voice. "What's the problem? Where are you right now?" I thought he might have visited the house we used to live in, but in reality, that house had already been sold. "Since we've decided to divorce, there's no me for you to be involved with anymore." "Where did Sophie go?" "I can't find her." It seemed he went to Sophie's previous house. Of course, she wasn't there, and I managed all the information and procedures related to Sophie's husband's family home. So Jack had no way of knowing. He seemed to have hit a dead end and contacted me. "Yes, actually, Sophie has moved to a new place," I replied calmly. "Why didn't you tell me something so important? Moreover, did you know about that too?" Jack seemed to have finally realized the truth. "Are you referring to the significant hidden debt that Ethan had?" Actually, when I investigated Ethan's inheritance in detail, I was shocked by the amount of the inheritance. But at the same time, I found out about a considerable hidden debt. Probably, while he was alive, he estimated he could repay the debt with about $5 million and hid that fact from us. However, he passed away midway through repayment, and the hidden debt was left neglected. When you officially receive an inheritance, you are also obliged to inherit such hidden debts. Jack was blinded by the allure of easy money and neglected thorough verification and investigation. That was his big mistake. So, I have a question. Did you really know about my dad's debt? Information is easy to come by. It becomes clear to anyone with a little search. That's why I noticed it, I explained calmly. I could imagine Jack turning red with anger on the other end of the phone. Anyway, what about the promised money? What about the money you intended to return? Jack's real goal was money after all. Besides, about that property, if I had known about my dad's debt from the beginning, I wouldn't have gotten involved at all. "I understand how you feel," Jack said, revealing his suspicions. I thought it deep down, but I chose not to say it. But think about it. Putting aside the money issue for a moment, you got to marry a very attractive woman, right? Isn't that pretty lucky? Of course, I don't know if Jennifer chose Jack because of his assets or if it was truly love. As soon as Jennifer found out about my debt, she left me. I thought she would. It's exactly as I expected, Jack confessed. Think about it. How about starting over with me? I feel deceived by Jennifer. I just realized now, you're the person I really need. Jack's tone suddenly dropped and became emotional. I wondered if he had forgotten everything he did to me. I thought to myself, feeling cornered. Every day, I'm being rushed by collectors, and the debt I can't repay is piling up. I'm at my limit. I really feel my life is in danger. Help me, please. Jack pleaded desperately. Even after hearing his desperate plea, I calmly thought, if I were in this situation, would Jack help me? I'm living peacefully now, and am truly satisfied. In the days to come, I want to live in peace. You might have forgotten, but remember what was said at my response. When I told Jack, the guy on the other end of the phone seemed at a loss for words for a little while. You mean like back then? He inquired. Yes, precisely. Jack, I sincerely appreciate that our divorce was able to be finalized. I firmly said, "Thank you for allowing me to pick a new route." Even though I could hear the shake in Jack's voice and his tears, I decided to end the call gently for the sake of my own future. Our partnership came to an end with this. As I considered the scenario, I thought to myself, I hope Jack is making an effort somewhere. I don't know how his life is now or how he's repaying his debt. Linda, how about going for a stroll outside and enjoying the lovely surroundings? I'm currently spending my days in Chicago with a beautiful individual I met through a shared interest. He's always with me and very warm. There is no greater enjoyment for me than to spend time with him.